Good afternoon and welcome again to the Stoner Report. I'm Marius Stoner, Associate Editor of Cannabis Culture Magazine, here with the week's marijuana news. It's kind of sunny today in Vancouver. It's 2nd of May. Don't forget, tomorrow is the Global Marijuana March, so find out where in your city you can go. In Vancouver, we're going to meet at noon at the Art Gallery and go down to Sunset Beach, so it should be a lot of fun. So don't forget to do that. And we'll start this week with a story from Canada. Charlotte's Web strain creator says Canada legislation is archaic. The developer of a special strain of marijuana marketed to children in hopes to convince Health Canada to allow the product in the country as some Canadian families head south of the border to receive the drug that's been shown to significantly reduce seizures. Colorado cannabis producer Josh Stanley and his brothers developed Charlotte's Web, a special strain of marijuana oil with very little THC and very high cannabidiol, CBD, the component believed to reduce seizures. The marijuana extract is designed not to produce a high, but instead fight seizures through its high level of anti-inflammatory properties. Josh Stanley, the developer of a special strain of marijuana marketed to children, hopes to convince Health Canada to allow the product in the country. Oh, I have a little picture too, sorry. There we are. The strain is named in honor of Charlotte Figi, and that's her there, a U.S. girl who was losing a lifelong battle to epilepsy until she began using the marijuana oil. When we had met Charlotte, unfortunately, her family had signed a do not resuscitate order, Stanley told CTV's Canada AM on Tuesday. Charlotte was diagnosed with Dravet syndrome, a rare and catastrophic form of epilepsy that begins in infancy. Prior to testing the oil, she was suffering from about 350 seizures a week. A majority in Colorado says legal marijuana is good. Most voters in the first state to legalize recreational marijuana say the move was good for their state, according to a new poll. But a Quinnipiac survey of Colorado voters also indicates there's a wide partisan and generational divide over the issue. Colorado began allowing the sale of recreational marijuana on January 1st to anyone aged 21 or older. The state became the first to open recreational pot stores and became the first place in the world where marijuana is regulated from seed to sale. People can buy marijuana like alcohol, except the cannabis purchase is limited to an ounce, which is substantial enough to cost about $200 or more. According to the poll, 54% of voters in the state say they support the law, with 43% opposed, and 52% of voters say legalizing marijuana was a good move, with 38% saying it was bad for Colorado. Around 7 in 10 Democrats and a majority of independents say that they support the law and that legalizing marijuana was good for the state, with more than 6 in 10 Republicans disagreeing. Younger voters say that they back the measure and that legalizing pot was good for Colorado, with older voters opposing the law saying it was a bad move for the state. Florida sheriffs campaigning against medical marijuana. The Florida Sheriff's Association is set to make a large push against the legalization of marijuana. Voters will decide on the legalization of medical marijuana in November. The association sent an email to sheriffs across the state during the winter asking for their support. The Tampa Tribune reported that 63 of 67 sheriffs were in favor of opposing any measure to legalize the drug. Lindsay Deaton, a community relations coordinator for Brevard County Sheriff Wayne Ivey, says Ivey is one of the 63 who oppose it. The association is also looking for the support of substance abuse awareness and anti-drug groups to be part of the Don't Let Florida Go to Pot campaign. It also says there has been a spike in crime and traffic accidents in states that have passed similar legislation. Oh, that is a lie. Of the 20 states with the highest driver acknowledgement of drug driving, 15 were states that have passed legislation legalizing marijuana, the Association said in the statement. The Los Angeles and Denver police departments have reported significant increases in crime since marijuana was legalized in their respective states. That's weird. It wasn't legalized in Los Angeles for recreational purposes. The association said marijuana has a high potential for abuse and presents a significant danger to youth in the state. The legalization of marijuana will make the drug more readily available and easier to obtain by teens, as they would not need parental consent to get a physician certification for marijuana. The association said, with no quality or dosage control, there is nothing in place to prevent these storefront marijuana dispensaries from selling to minors. Just like there's nothing in place to stop 7-Elevens from selling alcohol to minors. Sorry. These things just get me going. Tennessee governor signs bill criminalizing pregnant women who use drugs. Tennessee Governor Bill Haslam today signed into law a bill that will allow the state to file criminal charges against pregnant women who use drugs on the grounds that they are potentially harming their fetuses, even though there is little scientific evidence that being exposed to illicit drugs in the womb causes long-term harm to children. In his signing statement, Haslam said he signed the bill after extensive conversations with experts including substance abuse, mental health, and law enforcement officials, and will be monitoring the impact of the law through regular updates with the court system and health professionals. The bill foresees prison sentences of up to 15 years for women who use drugs and whose babies were stillborn or born addicted or otherwise harmed. Haslam's move comes just one day after acting head of the Office of National Drug Control Policy slammed the notion in a visit to the state. Under the Obama administration, we've really tried to reframe drug policy not as a crime, but as a public health-related issue, and that our response on the national level is that we do not criminalize addiction, said acting drug czar Michael Botticelli. We want to make sure our response and national strategy is based on the fact that addiction is a disease. DEA chief opposes marijuana legalization and supports mandatory minimums. DEA Administrator Michael Leonhardt appeared before the Senate Judiciary Committee Wednesday to warn of dangers of marijuana legalization and affirm her support for mandatory minimum sentences. Leonhardt's testimony put her increasingly at odds with the administration that employs her. The Obama administration has announced that it is not going to interfere with legal marijuana in states that have approved it, unless some of its 8 listed enforcement priorities are in play, and that it has made very clear that it views mandatory minimum sentencing as a failed policy. Leonhardt mentioned 2 of the enforcement priorities, the leakage of marijuana to non-legal states and the use of herb by minors, in her statement to the committee. She said she is worried that an increase of marijuana trafficking in states surrounding Colorado and that the same thing could happen in Washington state. She also worried that increasing acceptance of marijuana would lead to increased use. The trends are what us in law enforcement had expected would happen, she said. In 2012, 438,000 Americans were addicted to heroin, and 10 times that number were dependent on marijuana. But she did not provide any evidence tying the number of marijuana users to changing attitudes or laws. The DEA is indeed concerned about marijuana legalization. 3 months ago, DEA Chief of Operations James Capra called legalization in the states reckless and irresponsible and warned of looming disaster. The Treasury defends rules on banks, marijuana sellers. Treasury Secretary Jack Lew on Tuesday defended the Obama administration's guidelines to banks conducting transactions with legal marijuana sellers as congressional Republicans questioned whether the guidance amounts to tacit federal approval for a drug illegal in most states. The Justice and Treasury Departments issued a roadmap in February, that would allow the new businesses to make payroll, save money, and pay taxes. A move that enables the legalized marijuana industry to operate in Colorado and Washington state. In 2012, the two states became the first to approve recreational use of marijuana. Representative Hal Rogers, chairman of the House Appropriations Committee, challenged Liu at a hearing, questioning whether guidance to banks on doing business with legal marijuana sellers represents a rubber stamp by the federal government to predominantly illegal activity. Without any guidance, there would be a proliferation of cash-only business, and that would make it impossible to see where there are actions going on that violate both federal and state law, and that would be a real concern, Liu told the House Subcommittee on Financial Services. We thought that the clarity, bringing it into daylight, was a better solution. Ideally, Liu said, Congress would write a law to establish a policy. In its absence, the administration issued the guidelines that banks must review state license applications for marijuana customers, request information about the business, develop an understanding of the types of products to be sold, and monitor publicly available sources for any negative information about the business. As Mexico battles drug war, soldiers may face civilian trials for abuse. Oh, that's the wrong picture. I wonder what happened to that picture. There it is, sorry. Mexico's lower house unanimously voted to change a military code that gave the military courts jurisdiction over any crimes committed by on-duty soldiers. As Mexican congressional decision this week that allows the members of armed forces to be tried for civilian courts for crimes against civilians is a long-awaited win for Mexico's human rights advocates say. Mexico's lower house unanimously voted 428-0 on Wednesday to change provisions in the military code, including a clause that had given the military courts jurisdiction over any crimes committed by on-duty soldiers. The Senate passes the changes last week, and the bill is now expected to be signed into law by President Enrique Peña Nieto. The reform is an important step because a civilian court, for all its flaws, is not rigged against civilians as military courts are, Human Rights Watch senior America's researcher Nick Steinberg told the Associated Press in an email. Mexico's civilian system is far from perfect. More than 96% of crimes are never solved or punished. But the military system is considered opaque, with no public access to the trial or prosecution information, and is full of incentives for judges to rule in favor of the military, according to a Human Rights Watch report, Uniform Impunity. Holding soldiers accountable for abuses is one of the most effective ways to help reduce widespread human rights violations by the military, Mr. Steinberg said. It will now be up to the civilian prosecutors to see that the huge backlog of military abuses is vigorously and effectively prosecuted. Former President Felipe Calderón put Mexico's military on the front lines of his battle against the organized crime and skyrocketing violence, a tactic many human rights defenders argue led to cases of civilian abuse and torture. An estimated 60,000 people died due to drug-related homicides during Mr. Calderón's 6-year term that ended in 2012. Mexico is prepping to buy more Blackhawks. The Mexican military has used U.S.-made Sikorsky UH-60 Blackhawk helicopters for years to fight drug traffickers, and now it's prepared to spend over $500 million to more than double its fleet. On April 17th, the U.S. State Department cleared the way for Mexico to purchase 18 Black Hawk helicopters for $680 million. U.S. Congress now has until May 17th to act if it disagrees with the proposed deal. The price tag also includes radios, night vision goggles, training and support services, and dozens of 7.62 millimeter machine guns, to be attached to the sides of the choppers to provide air support for ground attacks. Mexico has been battling a war against drug trafficking and related violence within its borders for nearly a decade. The move to procure such sophisticated technology like Black Hawks has some analysts wondering if it's a signal of Mexico's plans to move towards a long-term militarized approach to fighting cartels. Medical marijuana lessens MS effects, research suggests. With medical marijuana dispensaries set to open later this year in Massachusetts, a review of the latest research suggests that it can help alleviate multiple sclerosis symptoms such as pain, overactive bladder, and muscle stiffness. But the review, conducted by experts convened by the American Academy of Neurology, found that marijuana doesn't help relieve the uncontrollable limb spasms that result from a drug used to treat Parkinson's disease. And it concluded that there is insufficient evidence to know whether the drug reduces symptoms caused by neurological diseases such as Huntington's disease, Tourette's syndromes, or epilepsy. We wanted to inform patients and physicians, but we didn't make specific treatment recommendations, said study co-author Dr. Gary Gronseth, a professor of neurology at University of Kansas Medical Center in Kansas City. He and his colleagues recommended that doctors consider potentially serious side effects before certifying patients to grow or buy the drug. Mood changes, depression, hallucinations, or suicidal thoughts occurred in about 1% of patients who use marijuana for medical purposes, according to the review of 34 studies published Monday in the Journal of Neurology. Other side effects include nausea, increased weakness, dizziness, fatigue, and feelings of intoxication. Okay, happy 2:20 in Vancouver and happy 4:20 to all those in the Central Time Zone. And I've got myself a beautiful joint here rolled up. I'm just going to light it. So I hope everybody watching is smoking something good. Yeah, like I said, we have the Global Marijuana March tomorrow, and on the 1st of July, it's Cannabis Day. So we're going to be having another huge rally in the Art Gallery. Yeah, we're pretty active here in Vancouver. All right, I'll get back to the news then. All right. While certain forms of medical marijuana can be helpful to treat some symptoms of MS, our review highlights the need for more quality research studies on the safety and efficacy of marijuana, said study leader Dr. Barbara Kopel, a neurologist in New York Medical College in New York. The war on drugs aims its sights on pregnant women. Prosecution against pregnant women ignores science, evidence, and health. The prosecution of pregnant women for drug use represents the unhappy convergence of the war on drugs and the war on reproductive rights. Like other failed policies of the war on drugs, the prosecution of pregnant women ignores science, evidence, and health in favor of stigmatization and punishment. And it comes as a huge cost, paid primarily by women of color, poor women, and children of those women who will be cut off from prenatal care and perhaps removed from their families in the state's zeal to punish their mothers. Unfortunately, just this week, the Alabama Supreme Court ruled that women can be charged under the state's chemical endangerment law if they become pregnant and use a controlled substance. The Drug Policy Alliance joined with National Advocates for Pregnant Women and the Southern Poverty Law Center to file amicus briefs in a number of cases of pregnant women wrongly prosecuted in Alabama on behalf of 49 medical, public health, and health advocacy groups and experts opposing the judicial expansion of the chemical endangerment law to pregnant women and mothers. While some states, like Alabama, prosecute pregnant women under the criminal laws or child neglect and endangerment laws of the state, Tennessee is, unfortunately, on the verge of enacting the first law in the country that would authorize the arrest, prosecution, and incarceration of drug-using pregnant women rather than providing them with what they most need, health care. Governor Bill Haslam has until Monday to veto the bill. A petition is being circulated to urge the governor to veto the bill. Unfortunately, he did not veto the bill, as we read earlier. Psychedelic mushrooms could cure anxiety for cancer patients. A New York university is studying using psilocybin to help patients overcome the fear of death. When O.M. was 21, he was diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma. He was a pre-med student at the time. His first reaction was denial, followed by an overwhelming and lasting anxiety, as described in an April 22nd Atlantic article by Rock Morin. After 6 rounds of chemotherapy helped O.M. kick the cancer, he was plagued with a devastating fear that the disease might return. He checked his lymph nodes so often to see if they'd grown that he developed calluses on his neck. He experienced this debilitating end-of-life anxiety from the moment he was diagnosed until the day he ingested psilocybin, extracted from hallucinogenic mushrooms, while laying on a psychiatrist's couch during a New York University study. O.M. is one of 35 study's participants, all of whom suffered from severe anxiety due to cancer. The double-blind, placebo-controlled pilot study, which is still ongoing, looks at the potentials for psilocybin to treat anxiety and other psychological distress stemming from advanced cancer. The second half of the study will look on the effect of psilocybin on pain perception, depression, existential psycho-spiritual distress, attitudes towards disease progression, quality of life, and spiritual and mystical states of consciousness. O.M. told The Atlantic that when he ate the mushrooms, it was like a switch went on. I went from being anxious to analyzing my anxiety from the outside, he said. I realized that nothing was actually happening to me objectively. It was real because I let it become real. And right when I had that thought, I saw a cloud of black smoke come out of my body and float away. And finally, Colorado hemp farmers ask for nearly 1,300 acres for crops this year. Hemp could be growing in more than 1,000 acres of Colorado farmland later this year, among the first legal grows since 1950s. The state registration period to grow hemp, legalized along with recreational marijuana through Amendment 64, closed Thursday. Farmers applied to grow hemp on 1,273 acres. Not all applications have been approved, and a few more could trickle in by mail if they were postmarked by Thursday. Industrial hemp, a cannabis plant related to marijuana but lacking the THC chemical that makes marijuana users high, is harvested in other countries for its versatile use in food products, textiles, and building materials. Farmers expect to be planting the seed in Colorado within the next month. Most say they found ways to purchase seed, typically bringing it into the country illegally since it is not federally legal, but other issues still haven't been worked out. And that was the Stoner Report for May 2nd, 2014. Thank you for joining me. Don't forget the Global Marijuana March tomorrow. If you're in Vancouver, come visit us here at the Vapor Lounge at 307 West Hastings, or come to the bong shop and get some clothes or bongs or other smoking supplies. Thank you again for joining me. Remember, cannabis is the most advanced plant on the planet, and we're going to use it to save the planet and save ourselves. So until next week, take care. I'll see you then.